Last time we did the Galaxy S23 versus the iPhone 14. We're back today talking about my months later experience with the S23 versus the iPhone 14 Pro. Which one I think is the better option. And I gotta tell you, I've been thinking since day one that the S23 is closer to that of the iPhone 14 Pro than of a 14, but I compare the other ones because of the price point. But let's begin by talking about their body and build since we're already in this angle right here. You can see stainless steel dominates the iPhone 14 Pro with a glass back, and we do have a triple camera bar up there with the purple. These two together looking kind of like the Joker colors, if you ask me, but we have a green colorway here, and we do have the, stainless steel, but I do think, on the aluminum on the S23, but I do think it looks like stainless steel is what I meant to say. And very thin. So thin, light, and again, while aluminum looks stainless steel, the back glass, just like the iPhone 14 Pro, and what I think is a cleaner camera design right here. I mean, look how flush, well, it's not flush, but look how low the camera bump is there versus that of the iPhone 14 Pro. If you take a look, sticks off the body a little bit more, and Apple is rumored to bring a thicker camera on the next one, which should provide better results, but might stick off the body more. However, I think that rumor is false. I think they're going to do something and make the phone thicker with a bigger battery, and I don't think the cameras are going to stick off the body as much. We're going to have to see what does happen, but we do have a power button right here on this phone, and on the Galaxy S23, power button right here, a little bit smaller, but a little bit lower down, but we do have the volume rocker right there, whereas Apple has the volume rocker on the other side with the silent switch right here. Silent switch is still something I prefer on the iPhone, but I do like how the volume rocker and the power button are on the same side for the Galaxy S23. One of the most stark differences between these, and even though they're pretty much a similar size, is the weight differences. 168 grams months later has always felt like a more compact phone in the Galaxy S23. You just feel it right away, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro, while if you look at these two on the surface, they do definitely look around the same size. They are not in terms of the weight. The iPhone 14 Pro is like a little dense brick in your pocket at 206 grams. iPhone 14 Pro at 206 grams at this size is heavy. I mean, the iPhone 14 Plus, I believe, is lighter than that, and that phone has a larger display. Some people do like that, but I personally like a lighter phone because when I'm walking around, it doesn't weigh my pockets down. Now, this one does have a SIM card slot, which is something that iPhone went away from with the iPhone 14 Pro, at least in US, and you'll see USB-C at the bottom with a speaker grill there, and up at the top there's a speaker in here, and we do have a punch hole camera versus dynamic island on the iPhone, but the Galaxy S23 a very clean, simple design. Now you'll see, unlike the 14, at least this has something a little bit different in the dynamic island up here. At the bottom we still retain the older lightning port, and we do have ourselves these speaker grills down there. Honestly, I think for the price increase of around $300 to $400, I do think that the iPhone 14 Pro is a little bit overpriced by comparison to what the value is on offer for the S23. It's giving you nearly the same experience hardware-wise for several $100 less. I mean, $400 is like, you could do a lot with $400, so that's a big difference. So let's take it on to the display. So the Galaxy S23 actually has a 120 Hz dynamic AMOLED display I talked about in the prior video, but where it really shines is that it has a 19:9 aspect ratio, and I say that like it's something important, but it kind of is, because the older S20 models had narrower displays and they weren't very comfortable. Nowadays, Samsung has employed the wider screen, which makes it a much better experience. I think it's near perfect when it comes to, the size and the width of the screen. It's really good. Also, always on display has been on Samsung phones forever, in display fingerprint sensor right there. But honestly, the display, super smooth, 6.1 inch, and I think the bezels look a little bit nicer than the ones on the iPhone. Over here, we are rumored to see bezels coming, almost bezel-less on the iPhone 15 models. Rumors are saying that Apple is pushing for this so much that we might see delays on our shipments. So you better get your pre-order in early if you're looking for a 15 Pro or Pro Max later this year. 425 nits dominates the screen, so it is a 1080p panel, which is okay for the size of the screen. Most people can't even see the difference between that and a 4K display on such a small device. But overall, Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2, the whole screen here has just been really good. It gets 1750 nits peak brightness outdoors, but it's just really smooth all the time. And it's got a really good width over here with really good colors. So when I go into the store, I still see the saturation being dominant on the Samsung phone. Now, Samsung does have this feature on board. If we go on display and scroll down under the screen mode, dude, if you go here, you'll see natural. You can make this thing very bland if that's your thing. So if you like that blandness, you got it here. But you can also do vivid mode as well. I don't want to sit around with some blandness when I'm, in the middle of the day. I want a nice, vibrant display. And you got that here. Now for the iPhone 14 Pro, LTPO, Super Retina XDR OLED display. This is a 120 hertz variety ProMotion. So very smooth, unlike the iPhone 14, and really definitely speaks to the price point here. But this phone does have 460 ppi density. And so when you do pixel peep, it is a little sharper than the S23, but nobody's really going to notice. Has the same exact aspect ratio, 19:9, but that dynamic island looking like a vitamin pill definitely sticks out a lot more. And I think the trade-off between what it does and the distraction that it is on the display wasn't worth it to me. I would rather see a full screen than have this and the little features that are in there. I would rather see an all-screen iPhone. Another new thing here is the always-on display. Nice new touch. Finally, Apple brought it here with the 14 Pro. I gotta say, overall, I think the screen on the iPhone is a little bit higher quality overall. So I would give it the win because it gets 2000 nits versus 1750 peak and 1000 nits typical, whereas the Samsung could hit the 1200 nits typical, meaning what you can use without actually having to trigger. Now, Samsung does give you the ability to really crank this thing up with extra brightness, and you'll see it can just really crank all the way up there. Now, overall, though, the iPhone is slightly better when it comes to just the pixels per inch, when it comes to the overall max nit brightness. So I would give it the win, but not for $400 more. So the value proposition is still there on the S23. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it in this comparison as well. The main reason people will continue paying for the iPhone is the experience of the software. iOS 16.5.1 Security Response C on here. It doesn't matter, guys. I know a lot of people you'll see in the comments saying iPhone is boring at this point. iPhone is it's just so played out at this point. Boring, nothing to do on that phone. It's just like I've been seeing the same iPhone same. You got to remember who the audience is in the comments. A lot of people that watch tech videos are into tech. The actual consumers of iPhones don't really care about what we care about, which is a lot of customization and stuff like that, and innovation and having fun and really into this market. Like a lot of us, on this channel and in the comments, we love this stuff. But the average consumer, not really. So, the iPhone still has a strong suit in that it's simple to use, it's familiar, and it has a luxury, kind of feel. It's got their own stores and branding. So definitely the software is a draw. Even with the app library, the widgets being simple, the grid of icons, it just works. It's like an appliance, bro. It just works. And I will say in some scenarios, I'm not going to front. I do like the iPhone experience more than the Samsung experience in a lot of scenarios. Like when I'm not trying to mess around with my phone, I just like how it works. It just works better for that. But when I want to play around and I want to get serious, I want to do some business, I want to do some split screen, the Samsung stomps all over the iPhone. And that's just the bottom line. Whether you like it or not, you don't want to admit it, that's fine. You could lie to yourself all day. The fact of the matter is this: Samsung is definitely more of a businessy. It has more business modes on here than ever. You got Samsung DeX. You can take the business right to the monitor. So there's a lot more you can do with the Samsung. And for those people who want to dig around, tinker around, or even just like a simple, really good phone that maybe later they want to play around with, the Samsung will keep you entertained for a very long time with the Galaxy Theme Store, with the Pop View, with the Galaxy Store even. And both these phones have a lot of accessories, but the iPhone is just tried and true. iOS just works. Samsung just works too. And I have to say, iOS has been a little bit buggier this year than the Galaxy S23 for sure. But again, these softwares are pretty much neck and neck. It's just down to your personal preference. Updates wise, Apple is still pushing them out faster than Samsung, but Samsung is still bringing a lot better update support than they ever did before. So they're stepping that ladder to getting up there with the best of the best in the industry when it comes to software updates. Now, when it comes to the speed, the performance of these phones, we have done tests already. We don't have to speed test them here. Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, I've been harping about how great this has been on the Galaxy for the longest time. Exynos processors are trash on the Galaxy for sure. They definitely lag up. They overheat the phone. And the S22 had heat issues, but the S23 fixes that problem, making this nearly a perfect Samsung phone, which a lot of people tend to agree with. The thing about this is that Samsung's nailed the software out the gate too. We haven't had any lags. I have no app crashes on this phone at all. It's insane how good it is on the Samsung Galaxy S23. However, I will tell you that the animations still need a little work. I don't think they're the smoothest out there. They are very snappy and fast. Don't get me wrong. They're some of the fastest animations out there, but they're not the most polished looking. So I think Samsung could work there. But the iPhone has the opposite. It's not the fastest animation, but it's one of the more polished, one of the smoother, looks good to the eye. And I tend to prefer both in certain scenarios. I definitely think they're both good at what they do. That app's taken a while to load, but the iPhone has the technically superior processor with the Apple A16 Bionic chipset winning out in the benchmark department. However, keep in mind it's very similar to the A15, and it's going to be a big update when it comes to the A17. So stay tuned to the channel for A17 speed test later this year. But the Samsung just feels snappier, and it's kind of funny because it's cheaper, but it just feels snappier. Again, it's due to like the way it looks when scrolling through and opening applications. And again, Samsung known to have a lag in the past. I don't care what anybody tells you in the comments. The S23 has no lag. You could tell them to just goodbye. Like, this doesn't have lag. Stop talking in the comments. That's just not true. The iPhone over here, beast in performance. Even on this beta, it's still a beast in performance. I have had no issues whatsoever. But where I really think the iPhone shines is if you want to do video editing on your phone, or you want to do like gaming and stuff, it really does good in these departments because a lot of developers develop really good video editing apps and really good game apps. You know, they put a lot of effort into it because they know the iPhone is a moneymaker. So they do give you a really good experience. And some people even argue the apps, they just perform and look better on the iPhone even now. I don't agree with that for the mainstream apps, but there are certain apps that it still does do better. And again, both of these stores do have some junk in them, and they have some great apps. I typically only download the good apps. Now, the Samsung does have more RAM at 8 gigs, but you can say that the iPhone is technically the better option if you want more storage. This can hit up to 1 terabyte. Of course, that's going to cost you a pretty penny if you decide to do that. If you don't have the time to manage your storage, it could be a good investment to go up into that storage department, but you are talking several $100s more for that. This is where Samsung again is a better value, because Samsung will often throw values on the 512 gig or the 256 gig option at the same price as the option that's less than that. So you're getting a massive amount more storage usually on the Samsung phone. And with UFS 3.1 and even on the higher storage options 4.0, you have pretty fast transfer speeds. We all know Apple does really good with their AirDrop and all that stuff, but Samsung's got their, quick share options as well, and nearby share. So we got both of those on the Samsung. So you got equivalents there. But the iPhone with its NVMe storage, very quick. But the Samsung is catching up here too with their UFS. It's not the fastest SSDs out there on the Samsung, but they're pretty darn quick. And, the iPhone's still probably the fastest SSD on a phone, but still, storage option in general, 1 terabyte on the iPhone is just a really good option. All right, let's talk about the cameras. Now, this is not a full camera comparison, but we will discuss them here. Now, the Samsung, again, let's see the front here. I still think the iPhone does better on a selfie. I'll tell you why. The skin tones look real. The Samsung is better for people who don't want to see all of their pimples, though. Like, sorry, I'm not coming at you. I'm just saying, if you like me right here, I got this little mole on my forehead. Like, you see that little mole up there? I see it a little bit more crispy on the iPhone. So if you like a softer skin tone, you're definitely going to want to go with the Samsung phone for sure on a selfie game. Now, both of them can do really solid video on the front right here. They can do up to 4K 60 on the front on both devices. So that's pretty cool. Again, though, I do think the Samsung softer skin tones, more realistic skin tone colors on the iPhone. Now, when it comes to the photo game, Again, I would pick the Samsung for what you can do with this. Right here, you can go 30 times zoom, only 15 on the iPhone, but and they both have a 3x optical. But you can go 30 times on the Samsung, so I would pick it there. But actual video, I would pick the iPhone. It just looks a little smoother, a little bit nicer than the Samsung device. But the Samsung does have 8K video recording options. So this is really, really close, even though this phone you would think, you know, is not competitive at this price point. You do have a lot of great options here. Whereas some of these options, you would actually have to download separate apps on the iPhone to do this stuff. So for me, the Samsung is the better value camera, but if you want to go pro and you want to get really pro quality video, I do think iPhone is the win. Really nice raw photos, really nice video, really nice cinematic video. If you're serious about videography and photography, I probably would lean towards the iPhone here. But if you just want a general consumer camera with a really, you know, good selfie cam, a really good, you know, image that just looks vibrant and nice for social media, the Samsung might be a little bit more up your alley. All right, so when talking about the battery months later, I got to tell you that the Samsung was the better option when actually using it. Standby, though, was better on the iPhone. So if you are looking for longer standby, the iPhone Z. If you're looking for better use time, I found the 3900 versus 3200 over here was better in the Samsung, but neither of these are phones I would recommend if you're looking for a battery beast. That's going to be the iPhone 14 Plus. That's going to be the S23 Plus. Plus models for the battery. Think about that when you think about these phones. These are just day phones. Maybe a charge around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock if you're using heavy, maybe middle of the day if you're using it really heavy. So these are not like super long lasting ultra phones. Just keep that in mind when you are deciding between these two. Now, when it comes to the biometric experience between both of these months later, I got to say I've enjoyed the in-display fingerprint sensor on a Samsung, but I still like Face ID because it doesn't require a fingerprint press. And while I like the in-display fingerprint, Face ID doesn't matter if your fingers are greasy or if you missed. You don't miss it because it's your face. So I find that very nice. But this, if my fingers are greasy, if I can miss that. You know, it's still really good. It's one of the best out there. But if I miss where it's at, or if I do it too fast, see, it doesn't match. Like, you can miss it. It's not perfect. So Face ID, I think, a little bit more reliable, or a little bit more convenient. That's a better word. Is more convenient for sure. Now, there is a face unlock for the Samsung phone. As you just look at it, that's cool too. That's super convenient because you can even bypass, so it is faster. But it's not the most secure because somebody could just put this to your face and unlock your phone with a picture. That doesn't really work anymore, but it's just not as secure as Face ID. A little bit faster charging on the Samsung as well. 25 watts. You could do 15 watt here, MagSafe. Here's the deal. The Samsung phone just has more features for the money. And I honestly think while we did compare to 14, it was just a total stomping for the Samsung phone. Most people agreed. The Samsung is just a better value phone than a lot of smartphones out there right now. This is why the S23, I think, was a good pick. If you picked one, even if you pick one now, it's still a better value. It gives you like all these features, you know, a one package, a triple camera. It doesn't have a lot of compromises. One of the biggest ones, though, is that Samsung doesn't give you the SD card slot anymore. That's super annoying, but you don't have a lot of compromises here. A great screen, a lot of like zooming on the camera, you know, pretty good battery life, no heating issues, Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, thin bezels, light design, comfortable to use. It literally has all the stuff you need. Whereas the iPhone is kind of like, you want a little bit more over your older iPhone. You're still going to pay us because of the Apple branding. I still think it's worth it for people who love the Pro experience iPhone. But at this point, I would just wait for the 15 Pro. I think the iPhone is probably a higher end phone for sure than the S23 overall. But it's just hard to overlook these competitions. And I think Apple needs to really set themselves apart on the next iPhone. All right, it's going to get pretty interesting here in 2023. So stay tuned to the channel, be subscribed. I'm pretty interested in covering the iPhone 15 Pro versus the Pixel 8 and the upcoming S24 next year. And stay tuned because I got the Nothing Phone 2 coming as well. I've been waiting for my shipment, but it's coming. So stay tuned for that. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.